we'll go into the Q&A. First, let me answer, kind of just share the Aramaic. This is Matthew. I'm just going to pull it up on the screen because it's fun for me to look at it as I'm talking about it, and hopefully a few of you who studied Aramaic can do that. For the rest of you, it looks like probably a painting. So what the thing that Aramaic is kind of when you read it, is kind of funny what the structure if you're coming from like English into it. But the main theme of Matthew 10:28 is fear, but this is a healthy fear. It's the same. It's not kind of like fear of some like monster. This is what he's trying to instill in his apostles and disciples, is that you better have very keen hearing and seeing when you're dealing with other people, especially with people who are coming in as teachers or as prophets and so forth, or leadership in general. Okay, so this is the governor, the head of the army, whoever is leading, and whoever you're dealing with, that you pay very close attention, because there are people who have a healthy fear so you do not fall victim to their methods. Now, what he's warning specifically here in this fear, he says, do not fear the ones who kill the body. This is the word here is the physical body. So it's like, so there are people who kind of like threaten your physical being. And he's saying those are not the dangerous ones. Okay, they're dangerous. Okay, so if you're dealing with a military that's coming with swords, again, he taught us how to not provoke that. But he said those people just, if you lose your body, you lose your life in that moment. It's painful, it's terrible, it's horrible, but that's not the worst thing that could happen to you. The worst thing that could happen to you, the ones that you should be more careful of and fear more, are the ones who can destroy the soul and the body. Because by destroying the soul, by messing with your psychology, they will torment you. You'll torment yourself. Your body will fall apart. You'll be ill, and you'll end up in this word right here is Gehenna. You'll end up in what we call hell. Gehenna is a concept. It's about a place of torment. It's mental torment. It's anguish. So here that's really the type of fear that he's talking about here is very healthy. Pay attention and watch for people who are feeding you lies, who are feeding you fear about, just making you constantly worried. And we get that a lot. The reason I wanted to come back to it is because we get a lot of fear messaging. Just today, yesterday, the day before, I know that we should have tremendous respect for natural forces like hurricanes. But if you pay close attention, the media was talking about something that, that they're predicting something that we've never seen before, that level of destruction. So for days, people were fearing that the hurricane. Now there is healthy fear. Close your doors, board your windows, evacuate, right? Do all the common sense things. This is the kind of healthy fear, right? But if you're watching TV, the rest of us who are not in the eye of the, or in the path of the hurricane, we're basically watching, thinking, Florida is going to be like, shoved into and swallowed by the ocean. because the messaging was that way. So that's kind of like the fear that Jesus is talking about. It's like have healthy fear, understand risks and so forth, but don't watch out for people who kind of make you want to kill yourself or kill your soul psychologically, and then put you in that torment. So that's hopefully that kind of gives you an idea of what Jesus is talking about there. Now I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to go now to the Q&A. Okay. Okay, I love this question. So the question is, in Matthew 18, 21 and 22, where Jesus is talking to Peter, Peter was asking about forgiving his brother. Jesus replied 70 times 7. What does this mean? So Jesus preached forgiveness constantly. And with Peter, remember, Peter is a young man. He's a fisherman. He's not highly educated. So when Jesus said 70 times 7 times 70, he's giving him a number that would boggle his mind, right? It's like an impossible number for him to comprehend or get. So Jesus here was exaggerating with Peter to tell him there is no amount of forgiveness. You can't measure it. You can't just say, I've done my forgiveness work. You have to continue to work until the force of that event that caused you to be in pain and have to work towards forgiveness is totally annihilated. Because we have like in today's culture, we talk about, I'll forgive, but I'll never forget. That's the kind of mentality that Jesus was trying to annihilate. It's like to do forgiveness work. Now, the word in Aramaic is shwak, and shwak means to untie, to undo. So to untie you, that knot that takes a hold of you, sometimes it's not as easy as just one time releasing it. You might have to continue to work with that knot until it's totally gone. And that was his message to Peter, and that's why he exaggerated the number. Oh, I love this question. Okay, what happened to Jesus at the transfiguration on the mountain? So that episode, I think I probably should do like a whole talk, because it's a spiritual experience that he took the apostles through to kind of show them who he is, what line of prophets he comes from, and what their destiny ultimately as they grow in the movement is going to be. So I'll have to get a lot deeper into that, but that kind of gives you a glimpse into what happened there. Didn't Jesus mean beloved and not father? So this is absolutely. So that the term awun, he spent a lot of time to describe, because God is hard to describe. So that's and the God of Jesus is hard to describe, because we in most religions, they had actual, like at the time of Jesus, they had the deity had a shape. In old religions, the deity ended up taking a shape, or took like it was the wind or the sun or the rain. All those were gods in different cultures. But when Abraham introduced Allah, he introduced a God that is a spiritual experience, that it's at our essence. Jesus tried to do exactly that, bring that God that is all giving, all loving. And when he did refer to God as Awun, which literally in Aramaic is our Father, he was talking. He had already laid the ground to tell us that this God is like a really good parent who takes really good care of his children, who feeds the birds in the sky, who, when a child asks for bread, does not give them a stone. So he spent time. If you walked with Jesus like his apostles did, and were constantly trying to grab, it's like, what God are you talking about? What's wrong with the God of Israel? That it's like, it is the God of Israel, but this is a kind of redefining it back to its original form, because the God of Israel by then had become a very hard God to deal with, because you had the priests and you had the Pharisees and you had the Sadducees, and they were all speaking in the name of God, and they were counting your steps, saying, you're angering that God. He's upset with you because you walked too many steps, or you partook on in a meal with somebody unclean, or you ate something unclean, or you did this and did that. So the God that they were dealing with at the time of Jesus was a very hard God to deal with, and was constantly angry and monitoring people's. So it was, the society became that the leadership, the religious leadership that was representing God at the time, was not a good leadership. And Jesus wanted to break that, and he said, no, God is not this God. God is give us the Sabbath for the man, not for him, not to punish you. He gave you that day to take a break and enjoy your time away from work, not to have three people sitting on every corner counting your steps and seeing if you heated your meal or cooked something or worked on somebody who needed healing. And that's why Jesus broke, and that's the demonstration. He demonstrated constantly that our humanity and our love for one another and taking care of one another is what God wanted from us. And that's the beloved parent that is over all of us. So absolutely, today I would, if Jesus was coming today, probably with all the baggage that fathers have, and the different things that different expectations we have, he probably would refer to God as the beloved, the dear one, the one that takes care of you the most, and would probably avoid some of the labels that today would trigger us. Okay. This question, I've had this question before. Did Jesus spend time in India, Tibet, or Kemet? I've heard very prominent, influential pastors speak on this. It doesn't make sense to me. Well, there is and neither me, to be honest. So to be blunt, Jesus was a man from Galilee. He grew up in Nazareth. He spent the bulk of his life in Nazareth. Then he traveled a little bit around Galilee, and sometimes into Judea, and sometimes into Samaria. So these are all walking distance places. It took a while to walk these places, days and sometimes weeks. But that's where he spent the bulk of his time. The stories, when Christianity spread, with it, people wanted to relate to Jesus, so they drew his pictures and so forth in their likeness. Very common, and nothing wrong with that. But ultimately, also, eventually, people started saying he must have been here, he must have been there. There is no proof in the Bible that he ever left that area, the area he grew up in. And he did send his, some of his apostles made it to India. Some of his apostles made it to China. Maybe more disciples, not apostles. Some made it to Europe, Egypt, Mesopotamia, a lot, because it was close, and it was, all those roads were already built. And the Silk Road took Christianity into those areas. So, but Jesus personally, and the 30-some years that he lived, I don't think he left that, mainly Galilee and what we call today the Holy Land. So a very restricted area that he was in geographically. Okay, next one. Matthew 4:10 says, "For it is written, you shall worship the Lord your God, and him only you shall serve." Is he referring to the Father or himself? Jesus never in his ministry wanted anybody to worship him. He actually, when people said, "Hey, good teacher," a simple message. It's like, "Hey, good teacher," is like, "Why do you call me good?" He immediately snapped at them and he said, "No, the only good is God." He always wanted the loyalty and the power with God, never with himself. Christianity changed that eventually, and they made him God, which was never his intent. And it doesn't make sense from a Jewish rabbi perspective, where he grew up. It's blasphemous to do that. And actually, some of that confusion about being called the Son of God and so forth created some of his trouble when he went into Jerusalem, just because of the different dialects that they were speaking, and kind of doomed him in a way. But no, he never wanted to be worshipped. He wanted his teachings, the teachings of the kingdom, to be adopted. And he knew that they would be adopted differently by different people. So he didn't want uniformity in adoption. He just wanted each one of us to manifest their goodness, the way that with our talents, with our backgrounds, with our teachings, with our influences, bring that goodness and create that kingdom with one another, and then give the glory to the Creator that he called the Beloved, that he called the Father. Because we that's our source ultimately. But he didn't even want us to spend a lot of time praying. He said, the word slotha, the word prayer. And as I said in the beginning, that the reason I love the Lord's Prayer when he taught it, it was not about asking for favors, or he basically said, Father who's everywhere, the Beloved who's everywhere, who's present everywhere, take good care of us. And we're here basically to do the hard work, to stay in good relationship with you. Give us our daily bread. That means that we're not going to worry about storing and where are we going to get our next meal. And we have the faith that if we are good people, that we'll be taken care of. Do not let us enter into temptation, meaning keep us out of trouble. When we will be running into situations, the situation I was talking about in Matthew 24, wars could happen. I've been in two different times in my life, at least two different times that I remember. There are more if I really think hard about it, where my grandfather came to my dad and said, to the airport. And literally, it was like the next day we packed up. We were, visiting family, and we packed up and headed to the airport. And the day after we left, the airport was shut down, and it was, bombarded and so forth. And that's how quickly it's like. One day we're having meals together, and we're going to the theater and planning the next trip to the mountain and so forth, or the beach. And in a moment, it's like, poof, war came, and war came and destroyed everything, and we managed to get out in time. If we would have dilly-dallied a day or two, we would have been caught in it and would have been killed, would have not been able to travel and get back to our lives and schools and so forth. So that is real. That is not, we're blessed, maybe a lot of us in the modern world, that we don't experience that on a regular basis. But go talk to Syrian refugees, Iraqi refugees, refugees from Africa. They'll tell you, one day I was in my bed going to school, or going to planning my meetings for the next day, and then my whole building got wiped out, or the whole business got wiped out, and now I live in a tent in Greece or in England. This is real, and it's like at some point we have to wake up and stop doing that stuff. But also because we are not in full control of everything, so we have to be ready sometimes and listen to those warning signs, and make the right moves, and then continue to spread the kingdom, because at some point some of us will be in those leadership positions. Our kids will be in those leadership positions, and hopefully they'll start destroying the weapons instead of destroying each other. Yeah, I have one more question. How are we doing on time? Pretty good. What's a demon? I wrote down a demon is your inner self, but I am sure I missed part of the definition. So, biblically speaking, they didn't have the big psychology books that we have today. So any kind of mental illness, sometimes they blamed it on demons, like thought processes and things like that are internal triggers that could be external, that could internally get you excited. So ultimately, it's there is no being as a demon, but there are sometimes things that our minds generate that could be caused naturally, they could genetically, they could caused by pressure, by like PTSD. All these things can trigger psychological situations in our minds and in our beings that can be defined biblically as demons. And Jesus in his ministry had to deal with that. It's multiple personalities, different psychological issues, but he did not have that, as I said, the dictionary today to tell you exactly what the term for it was, but he knew how to deal with it. He knew that ultimately you can, in most cases, you can bring people back into a balanced state. Take care of what's angering them, what's triggering them for these thoughts to enter their minds and affect their day-to-day life. So that's all. Those are all the questions I have. I really appreciate them. One last thing I wanted to mention from last week, somebody asked about Jesus and the law, and Jesus, and did he talk about all this stuff? Go to Matthew chapter 5. I think I mentioned it last week, but in case you're here again, 5:21, 5:25, 26. He talks a lot about reconciling before you end up in the legal system. This is just a catch up from last week. Thank you again for joining us. We appreciate your contributions. This will be posted on YouTube. So if you missed something or you want to remember something that I said, please feel free to go listen to it there and share it with your friends and family, people who you think this might resonate with them. Blessings, and till next week.